super duper good. They tell me I'm a trooper, and you know I'm satisfied. I do yoga and Pilates, and the room is full of hotties, so I'm picking out the bodies, and you know I'm satisfied. I'm digging on the opposite with this metaphysics shoes dope, and if all this can give me hope, you know I'm satisfied. I gotta
watch out, folks. It's Madonna, the Revolutionary. The 2003 American Life album was meant to be a commentary on materialism and superficiality, which is possibly the ultimate irony when that message was being delivered by America's very own original Material Girl. Described by some as a borderline folk record, American Life fused original electronic beats with acoustic influences, Madonna helping to write every track on the album. Now, Music was the first Madonna album ever leaked onto the internet, but American Life ultimately suffered the same fate. However, in this case, Madonna launched a preemptive defense. She leaked her own fake music files, and when naughty fans tried to listen to the supposed new 3-minute tracks, here's what they heard.
What the fuck do you think you're doing?
And then 3 minutes of silence. Typical Madonna, right? Absolute brilliance. But unfortunately, she didn't have the last laugh. Madonna's website was the subject of a sophisticated hack, which saw the entire album stolen and leaked. And not only that, but the hacker left a cheeky message behind. It simply read, "This is what the fuck I think I'm doing." Oh dear. I'm joined by die-hard Madonna fans, Damien, Albie and Sarah. Welcome to the show, my friends.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you all on board. I know you're all in various time zones, so I really appreciate the effort. Sarah, you've been on the podcast before. You're a first time. You've been deflowered, so to speak. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Sarah. I am 24. I'm from Canada. And yeah.
And we've got a little bit of a taster question just to give everyone a bit of an insight about who's going to be doing the commentary tonight. And the question we're asking you all is, which Madonna song best describes you and why? What did you choose?
Well, here's the thing. Like, you really put me in like a tough position, Tim. Because
I'm good at that.
I actually had like 3 answers, but I'll tell you what my main answer is, and then I'll tell you what were contenders. I would say the one that best describes me is I'll Remember, because it's such a beautiful, dreamy song, and it's a song all about like standing up and being independent with who you are, and just remembering that you have some inner strength within you, which is something that I always remember whenever I'm doing anything that I am putting out to the public or in front of people or anything in my daily life in general. And then the other 2 songs that I felt that described me that were close contenders is What It Feels Like for a Girl, because I'm a trans girl, and I think that song represents all sorts of women and how they are fit into the world and how they are part of the world. And then the other one was Nobody Knows Me, which is from this album. And because I'm also like a very like antisocial person, so I think that song really describes me well, and we're probably going to get into it when we talk track by track. But
good on you, Sarah. So basically it was really hard for you to choose because Madonna speaks to you in so many different ways, right?
She really does, and that's why she's like one of the artists that I've always looked up to, and she's inspired me to actually go into music like she does and stuff. So I've always admired her work.
And good on you. It's fantastic to have a younger fan on the line as well. Albie, introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us which Madonna song best describes you, Madonna.
Well, hello. Yes, Madonna is here. Hello, listeners. I'm from Los Angeles. My name is Albie. Visit me on Twitter, Madonna. I have all the tea and all the gossip.
I love the self-promotion. Madonna would be proud.
Yes. So I think like the best song that represents me from her catalog would be, we talked about on last podcast, well, Survival is one of the songs that I always resonate to. It's about surviving everything and still being strong, sticking it out. Things are thrown at you through your life, but you're still here standing. You know, I'll never be an angel, I'll never be a saint, but I'm too busy surviving. That's the best line from that song. I'm like, that hits it right there.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Albie. We also have a newcomer on the line, Damien from the UK. Welcome to your first podcast, Damien.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name's Damien. I'm from the UK, and I don't know, the song that best describes me, weird enough, is probably Paradise Not For Me from the music album.
Wow.
I think everyone can relate to ups and downs in their life, and I can, and it's just, I think it's one of her most beautiful, haunting tracks. So I've always felt, I don't know, connected to it in some way.
That's fantastic. It's really good to have you on the line, Damien. By the way, do all the other podcasters agree it's fantastic to have a bit of a different accent for a change?
Oh,
Absolutely.
Agreed.
It's really good to have you, Damien. Thank you. Let's get into the podcast. We're here to talk about the album American Life. Hey, Sarah, is American Life Madonna's suckiest album?
There's a lot of mixed feelings on this album. It's very polarizing. It depends on like what your taste is, in my opinion. I remember that this was an album that I think a lot of people had a hard time really digesting because it was such a different sound. There was different types of, Madonna was really giving her political viewpoint on things in certain ways. With the leaked version of the American Life video specifically is what I'm thinking of. And it was an album that I would say I didn't really like when it came out. I only liked the singles. I would say I loved the singles, but I didn't like the album as like a whole. Like I couldn't listen to it until about like 2014. And then there were some songs even on there that I didn't even like until this year. So I didn't really fully love the album until this year, but I think there are worse albums in our catalog.
There's a preview of MDMA right there.
Oh.
Maybe so. Maybe
you're telling the truth.
Not so subtle, Tim. Not so subtle.
Sarah started it.
But one thing I will say that I think this album truly, that I think everyone can agree on, is that this album's not like some sort of like didactic mess. It's very cohesive, regardless of what you think of the sound lyrically and content-wise. There's a story and a narrative to it, and I think it's still a full album and still gives Madonna's true structure. It doesn't look like she doesn't know what she's doing, if you know what I mean. Hint at MDNA. But
yeah, that's interesting you say about the cohesion of the album, Sarah, because I'm going to speak to that soon because I actually don't agree with that. Damien, as a newcomer to the podcast, what do you make of this piece of work as a whole?
As a whole, I think it's brilliant. I'd when it was first released, I liked it from the offset. I knew it wasn't going to be this universally liked record because I don't think she made it for the mainstream. I think she had something to say, but I think it's one of her best works, to be honest.
I'm a little bit the same as you, Damien. When I first heard this, I actually really did like it, but I knew immediately this was not going to be a worldwide hit because it just didn't have the chart stomper singles, which is what drives an album. And for me, I felt that it didn't deliver on its promise of being as politically charged as actually what it suggests. I'm talking about the imagery of the album. I'm talking about the first video clip. I'm talking about especially the Che Guevara imagery, which is all about rebellion and revolution. And I felt like the actual content had some political edge to it, but actually it could have been a lot more rebellious in nature. Albie, we'll come to you. What are you making of this project?
Well, I feel like when I first listened to it, I thought it was really brilliant, like Ray of Light, like the icy strings and the futuristic tone. It did continue the music album's trip hop guitar stuff, but in a more recluse, isolated way. This album is very misunderstood by the fans. I feel like it's hit or miss. It's either you like it or you don't. It was in your face. She was basically telling people, look at the do things in life that are simpler. Like, look at the simpler things in life. Don't look at material things. And it's funny that you say that, Tim, that, the album should have been more political. But in reality, I remember her doing interviews with MTV at the time. She's like, this album's actually not political. It's basically about illusions in life and how we don't see the bigger picture in life and how everything is so.
Can I? But
Yeah.
I agree. This is where I think this album gets confused for me, because it is absolutely packaged as a concept album. So, and then you're right. She did talk about it not being political. We want to focus on relationship and the people we love, the things that matter in life. However, the imagery of the album and the first video clip and the first single are a mixed message. They don't add up to, if that's what she was trying to achieve, they do not add up. Don't forget, we're on the cusp, or actually at the beginning of the Iraq invasion, and in America in particular, that was resonating big time. And so she went in there to cause controversy, which I love. I think Madonna does that deliberately, and I think it serves a purpose, an artistic purpose. So it's interesting that she did actually go down that path of this. Actually, you're misunderstanding me. This isn't meant to be political, yet everything about the packaging and about the marketing was exactly that.
Yeah.
Even in the American Life's single, like the band video, you notice like she had a runway fashion show, how everyone is looking at this fashion show when there's a war going around. So I feel like she brought on the Iraqi war at the right and the wrong time, and how the world was just focused on, vanity and money and this and that. And then there was a war going around, like a war that's affecting people, and they don't realize it.
I love the fact that she tosses the grenade, and she had the George Bush, who was such a divisive president at the time, arguably as divisive as Donald Trump is now. So she throws the grenade, the fake George Bush picks it up and actually finds an alternative use for it.
I think like when I look at this album, I don't always feel like American Life should be the title of the album necessarily. And with the song itself as well, because it is, it's speaking more so about like the media itself versus it being totally political. And it kind of, like you said, gives that mixed message. I think this was her first like lead single, I think, not to chart in like the top 10s. It was number 38, I believe so, on the top 100 billboards.
I think I peaked at number 35, Sarah. That's what I remember.
35. Yeah, it was like
on the Billboard.
Yeah, it was like something like that. And I think it was something that was not, to me, it's not as digestible as something like Music or Vogue or, one of those songs, because it's talking about something very specific where as well people would have opinionated, very strong opinions on what's going on in America with conservatives and liberals and all those, and politics in general.
Interesting you talk about the title maybe not representing the album properly, because it was going to be called Hollywood for quite a long time before it just didn't sit right with her. So she
interject.
It was.
Yes, please do.
The original title for the album was going to be Ein Sof, which is from the Kabbalah, a Hebrew word.
Endlessness.
Which I think she said during an interview one time. I think it might have been with Larry King. But she said that it meant endlessness or an end in infinity or something along those lines. But that was the original title. Then she decided to change it to Hollywood. Then it was American Life. But.
And Damien, in the UK, how was this received? Because over here in Australia, I think there was borderline offence and people really missed the point of what Madonna was trying to do. It felt like taking advantage of something very serious. How was American Life, the single, received in the UK?
In the UK, I think it was, at the time, I think it was received quite well. I think people get her irony in the UK.
Yeah.
And what she has to say in a way that US audiences just don't. No disrespect to anyone
I agree.
in the US.
Yeah.
But
Nope.
I also think Australians understand her more than what the US fans or people in general do. It's just her sense of humor and how she sees life. I don't think entirely works for a lot of Americans, unfortunately.
The question was very much, was the timing disrespectful? And that was the question asked all over the place at the time. Madonna's reply was very stern. This is exactly the right time.
Which I think it was.
And America was being sensitive at the time. I remember, like, when the album was released here, I was living in Florida at the time, and the mention of Madonna's new single, like, it was everywhere. It was like, oh, she's, you know, hating the military. She is anti-American. She's this and that. But I'm like, no, guys, you're not listening to this whole song. You're not even. That's not what the song is about. You're just getting the visual, what the visual is about, but you're not understanding.
Well, what is the song about?
This is the problem. I think people don't listen to Madonna. I don't think people really, truly, they take the surface and they don't delve in any further. They don't truly look at what the lyrics are saying, what she's saying. They just take everything on face value for her. That's why I think, you know, she's so hated by people. She might be loved by millions of people, but I think she's hated in a more universal way than loved these days. But like, it's just a shame that people can't look deeper and can't see what she's trying to say, because she says so many positive things and so many things that need to be said, and yet people don't pick up on it. And I just think that's really unfortunate.
In the past, like, I would say 10 years in general, Madonna has been not well loved in North America. She's more so looked as like an old person, but they don't look into what she's actually saying, and they're missing the point. They don't digest into what her messages are. And that's always been, I felt that's always been a problem over here in North America.
Let's move into track by track. We do want to just look at the song American Life now. It was the lead single. I'm curious to know if you think there was a better choice of lead single, and also what we make of this. Forget the message for a moment. What do we make of this as a track? And of course, we have to highlight that Madonna raps in single one.
I feel like it's two different songs in one, because like you hear the hip hop version where she's rapping, and then you hear the strumming of the patriotic, the American Life. You get that, and then you get the whole song. So it's like actually three songs in one, to come to think of it.
Value for money.
That's so true you say that, because I always feel like once we get like the first like 2-3 minutes or so, and then we get to the rap, it's like feels like this like turned into something else, and I'm like, wow, this is something else.
Yeah, she really. But and her rapping, I'm sorry, like people hated it. I'm like, wow, Madonna really goes in. And you hear that hip hop beat, like boom, 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 like damn. Even like seeing the Reinvention tour live, and she's like rapping, I'm like, dang, she got beats.
She can do it.
I love when she's like on the car in like the video, and she has like her soy latte, and she like just throws it. I love that part so much. Like,
that is the best. Amira Ways produced it. Yet again, he produced the whole album. So I felt the Amira Ways standard classic touch of his throughout the song and through the rest of the songs of the album. This is one of those brilliant songs. I thought it was a perfect first single because it was different. She loves to do different things.
Yes.
Like look at Frozen. Mm-hmm. Like Frozen, no one ever thought Frozen would be the first single for Ray of Light. I mean, it just brought, that's the Madonna touch, the artist right there.
That's true. And
the perfect single in some ways, but in other ways, I think that it just wasn't a radio-friendly, commercial sounding single. Mm-hmm. And I think she knew that from the jump, to be quite honest. I think she's not stupid. She knows it's not. I mean, would you guys say it was a radio-friendly song?
You know what? I only heard it one time on the radio, and that was when I was in Florida. Then I moved back to LA, and then I heard it on the radio when it was in LA. And I was like, oh my God, I'm hearing it finally on the radio. And that was the only time they ever played it.
No, because I was thinking, like, to me, the most radio-friendly song on this album is probably Nothing Fails or Hollywood.
Love Profusion is kind of radio-friendly, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't think it's first single material, but like, I would say it's radio-friendly. But like, I think I can understand why she released American Life, because it encapsulated the whole album and kind of what she wanted to say.
The video itself was gorgeous. Another Jonas Åkerlund production.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the best videos.
Yes.
Yeah, it
There
is.
many different versions of that video. There was a violent version. There was the version
Yeah, I
that
think
was
there's
banned that we
three
saw.
edits of that
Yeah.
version. That video.
Yes.
I do remember the flag video being on. Like the only time like I ever saw like American Life on TV was the flag video, like the one of the flags in the background of the world and
Boring.
stuff, and like that being on MTV. I remember that being replayed quite a few times,
That was
but I
played
don't
here
remember
in the
American.
UK. Yeah, a lot. That video was on a lot, and I just used to think, oh god, the video is just so bad. But
Well, the
Yeah.
first incarnation of the video, I remember was leaked on the internet via France. Like France Music Video played the video before it got pulled, and I downloaded it immediately because I was like, "What is? I want to see this video." And it took me 3 hours to download the video. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's where I waited patiently. I'm like, "Oh my god," just to see a 4-minute clip,
Yeah.
and it was worth every minute.
Was it too violent?
The version that was shown in French TV, it was not as violent as the one I saw later on YouTube, and that was pulled. The one on YouTube showed like dismembered like legs on the runway, like military men being splattered with blood. There was a dead baby. So it was.
Yeah, I remember.
It was very violent, but I mean, it got me a little like, oh.
But I think what she said during an interview, where she said, people are saying, oh, you're going to upset people, especially in America. And she was like, well, this is something they see every day on the news.
Yeah.
And yet they're fine with it.
Sarah and Damien, did you guys go to the Reinvention tour? Did you guys see the tour?
Yeah.
I was too young for that.
Well, she played the full video during her American Life song. So like she played the full thing. So that's how I was like, okay, now I see. There was like a different, even that version was different than what I saw. I'm like, whoa, this is a little intense, but I love it.
I want you all to be really honest. Who knows every word to the rap?
I could. I've rapped it in karaoke.
Oh, wow.
I have many times. So I just need a karaoke string and I can.
Is anyone willing to do it now? Oh, listen to the silence. Crickets.
Ooh.
Okay, I'll do it. Fine.
Go for it. 1, 2, 3.
I'm drinking a selector. I get a double shot.
It goes right through my body, and you know I'm satisfied.
I drop a Mini Cooper, and I think super joy. Tell me I'm a trooper, because you know I'm satisfied. I do yoga and Pilates, and the room is full of hotties, so I'm checking out the bodies, and you know I'm satisfied.
Doing well.
I'm digging on the isotopes, metaphysics, shit is open, if this can give you hope. You know I'm satisfied. I got a lawyer and a manager, an agent and a chef, 3 nannies, an assistant, and a driver and a jet, a trainer and a butler and a bodyguard, a gardener and a stylist. Do you think I'm satisfied? I'd like to express my extreme point of view. I'm not a Christian and I'm not a Jew. I'm just living out the American dream, and I'm just realizing
that nothing is what it
seems. Yeah. I love it. I've got a big smile. Round of applause. Come on now. That was brilliant. Well done.
My new album, Dr. Dre's producing it.
That's right. They don't call you Madonna for nothing, do they?
That was so good. Oh my God.
Well done. I'm really proud of you. Single 2, Hollywood. And this is what I want to just come full circle to a point you made, Sarah, around you talked about this being a cohesive album. For me, I feel like there are 2 themes and they don't quite make sense to me as we walk through this album. Single 2, Hollywood, as a song, unbelievable. Got to talk about Britney Spears and all of that. But what do we think of the track Hollywood?
I kind of like want to, it's kind of like from what you said, I do see what you're saying, Tim, when we jump from American Life to Hollywood, that it's 2 different things. But what I see this album as, and specifically, I don't feel like the album should have been called American Life. I would have preferably preferred Hollywood Life or Madonna Life, because I feel like all these songs are different elements of what is in her life, her past, present, and now.
I know this is going to sound outrageous, and I know this is going to generate comments, but Madonna actually offended me throughout this album on that score that you just nailed, which was, this is meant to be about revolution, rebellion, it's a political message, materialism, the search for something deeper, yet every track is about actually Madonna. And I think if you're going to, and Madonna does that a little bit when she does like an obituary for Michael Jackson, it's all about Madonna. And that's one thing, I know she's got to have an ego, otherwise she wouldn't be the person she is. But through this album, if she's going to explore such a deep topic and a worthy one, I found it quite self-indulgent, actually, this album.
How did you get that from Hollywood? I don't understand that, Tim. Like, where did you get that from Hollywood?
For me, Hollywood is Madonna saying to the world, hey, guess what? You all think that this is so good to be rich and famous and to have all the accolades, but I'm Madonna, and I can tell you, if you got here, if you were lucky enough to be me, then you wouldn't like it as much as you think. And I find that incredibly arrogant. If it's such an empty, hollow lifestyle, why do you still continue to live the privileged life that you do? I don't resent her privileged life for 1 minute, but it seems self-indulgent to reach that point and then complain so bitterly about it, but also not give it up.
I think she's just reached that point in her life, she was having her kids, starting to have her kids, having a family, and then she just realized that second peak of spirituality with this album, saying, it's not all what it's meant to crack up to be. Like, it says, you get the glamour, you get the Hollywood parties, Oscars and whatsoever, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So it's like, what better person to say that than her? Like, she's been through the upper echelons, but she's telling you know what, guys, I rather, spend time with my family.
And guess what? Middle classes and lower classes don't strive to be here. Yet, at the same time, I'm not going to give up my gardener, my bodyguard, my nanny. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. Don't bother striving for this, but I've still got it.
Give it up?
Of course not, but I also wouldn't sit there saying, oh, believe me, it doesn't make me happy, because it doesn't calculate.
I feel like she also doesn't have she does have a choice to leave that, but at the same time she's Madonna, and she will be followed around, and she does need bodyguards in case because people will still be after her, and it's like you can't really can you really turn something like that off fully?
But as a song, though, just to win back some of the listeners who are now all furious with me, the song's fantastic. It's a great boppy song. I love it.
Yeah, it's a really good song. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the most radio friendly song on the album. I would say.
Yeah. I think it's another one of her best videos because I love the video.
There were references to Botox in the video too, which now is probably a bit blah, but back then,
you brought that.
She actually does Botox on the video, which another shocking image of her getting Botox with a needle in her cheek.
I heard it wasn't real. I heard that was fake.
Oh really? Oh, okay. I thought it was
real.
Real.
It wasn't. What I love and hate about this record is I thought Madonna was gonna go a certain way. And I thought that she was going to pull back from all the superficial stuff that she's saying to people, stop being superficial, don't believe what you see in the media here and stuff like that. And 10, 15 years later, I don't mean to be horrible to her because I love her to bits, but she's gone the complete opposite way. And I've always felt a bit let down by that.
With the packaging and promotion specifically, because there's something shocking in the what we saw in American Life, and then to Hollywood with the VMA performance, and as well, because that was clearly a setup stunt of her kissing Britney Spears and kissing Christina Aguilera.
We have to talk about this performance because I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but I live for this performance because it's everything Madonna does well. It's utter brattish behaviour at its absolute best. First of all, it's the throwback to the Like a Virgin performance that she had at that first, was it the MTV First Music Video Awards? Whatever it was, her first performance.
Yeah, it was
anyway.
The first one, yeah.
So there's lots of referential stuff in that performance. And then to have the girls, the princesses performing that, and then for her to come up with the marriage music. She's not a virgin anymore. It was just beautiful. I love Madonna, how she references, and in this, it was just wall-to-wall references the whole way through, plus little Lola coming out as the flower girl at the beginning. I loved it.
Yeah, You know, it's something that's always so funny when I look at like when Britney comes up. It's like she literally sounds like Madonna when she was younger. Just the way she's singing and stuff, and that really like raspy sort of like childlike voice. It reminds me of when she did the performance a lot.
Yeah, you can hear the influence, that's for sure. Track 3 on the album is I'm So Stupid. Now, this is a bit fascinating. Oh, goodness.
Oh, gosh.
What do we make of track 3?
I love it. I love track 3. It's very punk rocky, but it's still giving me like that illusion theme where it's like nothing's what it seems. It's, you know, piggybacking off American Life.
I like the track, but I think it's probably the weakest track on the record.
This was the song that on the track that I actually didn't like until this year, and it was because of that. You know that.
Yeah, people hate
that thing. I could not get past that. Like I literally thought my CD player was broken
because it extends for so long, right? It's really a bold move. Whoever produced it, because it to have that for maybe half the time is pretty much standard Madonna-ish in my opinion. But to have it go for so long, like you say, it's like tap the CD player. Is it broken?
Yeah. Literally, because it's like you don't know what's going on, and I couldn't make it past that. But I think once you make past that, and I have a few friends that listen to this song, and they always tell me you just got to make it past that part, and then it's good. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, that's right. I just skip over that part now because I don't like that at all.
It's the don't tell me of the album where it skips, but it's that part where it's like, ah.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh my God. I couldn't do that song until this year, like only a few months ago. And I was like, hey.
But I don't know if anybody else also knows that the original demo initially featured a sample from the Stooges' I Want to Be Your Dog.
Really?
Does anybody know that?
Oh, wow.
And, yeah. And she did actually, it was during rehearsal, she did actually perform during the Reinvention Tour rehearsals. They did use the sample, and then it ended up getting cut.
Track 4 is Love Profusion. Now, I heard, and I don't know if this is correct, that this was released as a single purely because the fans campaigned and lobbied so hard for it to have a release. I don't know if that's correct or not. I love Profusion. I love many of the mixes that I've heard of Love Profusion. It sort of did need to be released, and the video clip, I think, is so simple but lovely.
It is a lovely song. I've always found it really beautiful. I think I always connected with the video of like that blue ocean and the flowers dancing. It's just very happy. It's very lovely. It's a song that she's never performed live, and I think this is the only song on this album that she's never performed live, and I think it needs its justice.
Apparently practice it during the rehearsals again for the Reinvention Tour, but it got cut. But yeah, unfortunately.
I remember the perfume for Estee Lauder, I believe.
Yeah.
Used Love Profusion for like their, I think it was the Paradise. I think it was the perfume.
Beyond Paradise.
Beyond Paradise. Yeah. And I remember like, okay, so I didn't even know that they were going to use the same treatment what they were going to do for the video, like the same blue and the fairies.
The director did the video, didn't he?
Yes, he did both the commercial and the video, so that was kind of like, oh, that was interesting.
We move into track 5, which is Nobody Knows Me. It's my personal favourite of the album. I still wouldn't have made it the lead single, personally, because I think American Life was, I think it set the album up, as somebody else said earlier. But Nobody Knows Me, I love this track. It's turn it up loud type of stuff, this one.
And Madonna loves the track because she made it the second song off Reinvention at the time. Like, Vogue opened and then it went to Nobody Knows Me. So that was killer.
Something I really loved, something that I really noticed with this song, and I love the performance of this song in general on the Reinvention Tour, because you really notice how strong Madonna is. And like, I've always noticed like how big her muscles are. I'm like, girl, you work out. Like,
Check those
like she
thighs
is
out.
like she's really strong and she's like very bionic. And I felt this song, if this song was called Nobody Knows Me, I would call it Bionic because it's just so it's powerful in ways. And it's a song about being like antisocial and stuff, and just it's one that truly I think represents her.
Fantastic track. We move through to Nothing Fails. She gets out the old guitar here. Yeah, tell us about it.
It's the Guy Sigsworth produced the song. He also produced What It Feels Like for a Girl. Singer-songwriter Jem wrote this song. And Madonna added her lyrics. So it's very beautiful track. And I mean, I love the choir in it. And it has a little bit of trip hoppy, a little bit of R&B, but also like a little bit of everything in it. It's everything, and it's very heartfelt. It's the soul of the album, I believe.
Really, I remember this being on TV when she promoted the album a lot, where it was like in the promos a lot, and I found it's just a beautiful, beautiful song overall, and beautiful lyrics in general. And I think this is a song outside of the singles that you could show to anyone. It's probably the most, again, digestible song.
And my back of my brain tells me that those lyrics that are along the lines of "I'm not religious, but I feel like praying." I know that's not quite accurate, but I feel like that's lifted from some spiritual readings or something. I feel like I know that quote from somewhere too, and she often does make reference to even the Bible.
People think this song is dedicated to Guy Ritchie, and it's not. Jem wrote it with Guy Sigsworth, but Guy actually originally wrote it for his wife, and then he started to work with Jem, and they co-wrote the song, and then he played the song for Madonna, and she liked it and changed a few of the lyrics and made it more personal to her. But like, it's funny how people are like, "Oh, this is so sweet because it was to Guy," and I was like, it wasn't to Guy.
Yeah, I remember it being promoted like that actually, and that's why that was in the promos a lot, because it's one of those songs that could be commercialized like that in North America specifically, because they're like, oh, it's about Guy and stuff, and so people in North America tend to get on that like relationship bandwagon.
Well, it's funny because she was adamant about adding a choir. She really wanted a choir in the song, so she did add that kind of gospel element to it.
It's absolutely
and it was
beautiful.
supposed to be a single, right? Like I remember there was talk.
It was a single. It was a single, depending on where you lived.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like a video was supposed to be released for it. Like she was supposed to have Stephen Klein direct it. It was supposed to be shot in Israel. So that's what I remember the news being, but it never happened.
Yeah, it never happened, unfortunately.
Intervention, track 7 on the album.
It's about Rocco. She wrote a song for obviously Lola, Little Star on the Ray of Light album, and apparently this was a song dedicated to Rocco, and that's what the lyrics.
I got to save my baby because he makes me cry. I got to make him happy. I got to teach him how to fly.
It's like one of those songs that are in the middle that you may skip over. I would have preferred she added an unreleased song from one of the sessions called "Set the Right." I think that could have replaced.
I was going to bring those unreleased tracks up.
Are there a whole heap of unreleased tracks, or are there just a small sample?
Only about 3 from this album.
Everyone's told me like there were no unreleased tracks to this album. When I remember on the forum board specifically, they were like, these sound like unreleased tracks from music. That's what a lot of people were saying.
There was like a group of tracks that were released together, but basically some of them were intended for that musical that she never ended up doing, Hello Suckers. Do you guys remember that? But, and live demos mixed in with that, so people were like, well, is that American Life or is that from, but it ended up majority of them were from that Hello Suckers thing, and then a small part of them were the American Life rejects.
Well, Sarah, you and I are heading to YouTube immediately after this podcast, by the sound of it.
Yes.
Acoustic version should have been on the album. I think it's lyrically, I think it's really good. And I love her voice. Her voice is like really crystal clear on that track. But Paul Oakenfold remixed it and made it into a dance track, which is also really good. But I do like the acoustic version.
Now, Mr. Stuart Price, one of my favourites. He's done work with Madonna after American Life, certainly Confessions. He's worked with Kylie. He's worked with all kinds of people, but he was part of the production and writing of Ecstatic Process, track number 8 on the album. I've got to say, this is, even though Stuart Price is involved, this is the one track that I can't get into.
Blasphemy.
It's funny.
Sorry.
It's funny to hear a Price track because it's very acoustic and he's more electronic.
Yes,
So it was all acoustic.
It reminds me of that Kylie song "No World Without You." That's what it reminds me of, which is like all acoustic. Yeah, that's
I've never made that link. I will now listen to it. I won't skip it next time, Sarah. I will go and listen to it.
Oh my god, that's like my favorite album by Kylie. But it's one that I don't skip over necessarily. It's one that I'll listen to when I listen to the album.
Yeah.
But it's, to me, Nothing Fails and Intervention sound very similar, so I usually skip Intervention, but this one sounds just completely unplugged.
And it's also titled from one of her photo shoots with Stephen Klein, where she's the Red Queen and she's the stripper.
The exhibition.
The exhibition. So it's titled after that, and I could totally see why. It's like, I think she's like questioning her place in the artistry movement, or like questioning herself, who she is in the world. So
and questioning her own identity, and just having an existential crisis in a way. And I think I love all the harmonies, and I love that it's raw and not overly produced.
Track 9, Mother and Father. Now, this is a very literal song. Like a lot of Madonna's lyrics you can interpret, or you can search for the meaning, and there's actually some fun in that. Mother and Father is a very literal song, especially when you get to, I don't know if you can call it a rap, but the interlude in the middle of this song, which really tells a piece of the story of her childhood, and I do love that part of the song. I really like Mother and Father. I find the production... I like the production very much, don't get me wrong, but it's I can't quite put my finger from an audio point of view about what they've done to this. It's like flat, like it's got thumping beats which have been flattened out or something. I like it though, just because it sounds a little bit experimental, but what do we make of Mother and Father?
Kylie, like we keep on talking about Kylie, it reminds me of like a Kylie song.
Well, that's probably why I love it.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. It's because like that tone in the beginning, like she's like, there was a time, like she sounds like Kylie to me, but I love the song. I really like it.
The middle of the song's more like she's more talking, and it's more like not necessarily a rap, but it's more, I don't know how to describe it. It's something very experimental and different, and like I love that about this song. Yeah, Robotica. That's the funny. Yeah.
Robotica. Her next album,
that should be her next. That's what she should name her next Miraways album.
Oh, that would be great.
I heard a criticism of this song that the that interlude in the middle. My mother died when I was 5, and all I did was sit and cry. I cried and cried and cried all day until the neighbours went away, and it continues.
Yes,
I've heard that was. I've heard the criticism made that is like quite a childlike. And maybe it was deliberate, but quite childish lyrics.
She did that on purpose.
Because she's from the perspective of a child, right? Exactly. Yeah.
I think this is also a song that's like something that the message has always stuck with her in her songs about her, because she's suffering from ongoing PTSD of her mother dying at such a young age. And then also the complications of her relationship with her father that we heard back in like a prayer with like songs like Promise to Try, Oh Father. And I think those two relationships have always been a complicated thing for her. And this is her confronting it and trying to let it go, specifically in the lyrics. And I feel she's trying, when she's like, I gotta give it up. And she's like singing it like when it gets really like trippy. Near the end of the song, I feel like that's her trying to like exit this topic.
And I couldn't agree more, Sarah, which is why it's really profound when you see her performing it on the Reinvention Tour in front of her father and stepmother. I often find, I'll be honest with you, I find it a little awkward thinking of them because it's quite a literal thing, and she's been quite open about her relationship with her stepmother, and that woman is tower of strength from what I can see, like what she's been through as well. Her journey would be fascinating to read, I reckon, coming into that world of fame. And Madonna's dad is so different from Madonna. And yeah, but to see her performing this song in front of them, that was quite profound and a little bit awkward.
You hear her, the vocal delivery when she sings it live, like, I got to give it up. She like screams. She like goes there.
Yeah.
Live vocals on that song. I think she did really well vocally on that song.
I wonder what her dad, because she writes about her dad a lot. Like, I wonder what her dad thinks of like "Oh Father" and like this song specifically. I would like to know like his perspective, or if anyone knows.
I think he'd be
his
horrified.
Perspective. But I think the most awkward thing was the sex book for him, maybe. But
Sarah, watch. Have you watched I'm Going to Tell You a Secret, the documentary.
I have watched bits of that.
It's wonderful.
That's the one with the reinvention tour, right?
Yeah, he speaks a lot, like during, like, she performs Mother and Father, and then there's interspersed cuts of him talking about how she grew up and how he felt during her times. I recommend.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely look at it, because I've only looked at like the performances for that, really, because I wanted to look at the reinvention tour and stuff, but I would like to see.
It's actually, that little documentary reminds me of like a more mature spiritual version of Truth or Dare. It really does. It's beautifully put together. Whoever actually did it has done a brilliant job.
Jonas Ackerland did it.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Does track 10, Die Another Day, belong on this album, or is it just there because it helped ship units?
I was thinking about it.
Oh, really? Wait, I want to hear your perspective on this first.
I do think it belongs on the record. I think sound-wise, it definitely belongs on the record, but at the same time, it's a bit of an oddball. It's a bit of it's like just there, but I still think it belongs on the record because I just think sonically it works with the rest of the tracks. At the same time, it just seems like where it's placed. I don't know where else I would place it on the record, but I probably wouldn't have placed it where it is because it just seems a bit
plonked,
jarring after the previous song.
I kind of like it after Mother and Father because with the end of that song specifically, just because of the end, that's all I'm like thinking, like where it kind of like sounds like she's dying, and then we're like into a song called Die Another Day. So I think I don't think, like you said, it doesn't fit anywhere else on the album really, but I enjoy the song. It was the James Bond theme song, as many know. It was a really odd one to me. It didn't really sound like a classic Bond theme song. Like that is more.
She wanted to reinvent it. She wanted to get techno and.
Cause
James Bond.
Yeah, because like most of the Bond theme songs are not like that. They're sung by people by these very powerful singers like Tina Turner, Adele and stuff. Garage did one recently during this time, so I think she really took it to a different place in many ways.
Like the line where she goes, "I'm gonna break the cycle," it just definitely fits with this whole theme. I agree with Damien, like it's maybe in the wrong place, but like I also agree with Sarah, like it's like at the end of Mother and Father, it's like I'm gonna break the cycle. This is not my time to go, and like it's a resilient song.
It received a mixed reaction. What do we make of the video clip for Die Another Day?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's really amazing. I know it's funny. My parents thought it was too violent.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they thought that whole movie was violent in general. Like they did not like later Bond films like around this
Bring
time.
back Sean Connery.
Yeah, that's their Bond.
Yeah,
that's their.
Yeah, it's every parent's Bond.
But I enjoy it. I like the aesthetics that are being in here.
One part of the video where she's like doing that wrap around her arm, that's a Jewish ritual for prayer, and only men in the Jewish community tend to do that when prayer. So I'm glad that she did it like as a woman doing that. I think that caused a little uproar. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But
No.
yeah, I love that she like does that little, little iconography right there.
And she also makes a cameo in the movie too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was her name? Divinity in it, or Verinity or something like
Vanity.
that? Verinity, yeah.
Veranity. Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, she looked good. I just wasn't really that memorable to me.
It was
But
blink and you miss it stuff,
I wasn't a
wasn't
fan of
The fact that she's played a lesbian fencing instructor. Pretty good.
It looked good on paper, I'm sure. That's right. And we round the album off with Easy Ride, which is interesting because I've always found Madonna feels, this is my perception only, I don't believe she said this, but I believe she becomes quite alarmed whenever themes around age become of issue. But in this, you could argue that actually she is addressing a theme of age and life and end of life and what life actually is. I think this is a beautiful way to round the album off. I love it. And I love the way the production sort of seems to change about 2/3 of the way through.
So good. The orchestra is on it. It's like, it gives you that very cinematic feel, but also it gives you the acoustics. And again, she's just like questioning her existence. What I want to do, what I want in life is to live forever, not defined by time and space. I mean, those lyrics are genuine. And then she was supposed to perform that song during the Madame X tour, the current tour, but it got cut. So
Yeah.
I was mad.
That's a shame.
And like I've always like her closing tracks are probably like the most memorable closing tracks out of any artist. Like I can think of like so many other closing tracks she did that were just beautiful, and she's concluding a story, and it's all, most of them seem like to be about life goes on and stuff, and that's what this is all about. And it's kind of, when she says she goes round and round just like a circle, it's kind of like more of a mature version of Over and Over from like a Virgin album in a way to me. So that's just me though.
The critical reception to this album was mixed, to say the least. Okay, it went everywhere from mixed to quite negative, actually. We've got Vibe magazine, when they did review when it first came out, they described it as this. This may be the first time Madonna hasn't pushed herself to explore new ground, but at least she's chosen a good place to rest. That's quite a backhanded compliment if ever I heard it. Would we agree? Is this, like, Madonna is known for pushing boundaries and for never repeating herself? I'd agree American Life sits in that box. But did she actually progress? Did she lead the way here? Is this one of the few times where she didn't?
I think she did, because like even today, what's that singer, Nelly Furtado, she says like, wow, like she tweeted, oh, I love American Life, this sounds so sonically ahead, and she tweeted that like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's touching people now, it's like, it's an album where obviously it's sonically ahead and people are still
I think this is
about
quite similar to Erotica in many ways, because it was misunderstood when it was first released, and now people have gravitated towards it as the years have gone on.
It for a while, I remember even in like 2008, 2009, early 2010s, I remember people saying that this was one they could not go back on. This was more read as negative versus positive. But I think with the 2016 election specifically, people have become more aware of it. There's more of an appreciation for it. And I think even herself, around that time, she was performing songs from here on Tears of a Clown, which was the Australian part of the Rebel Heart tour.
It was her apology for taking so long to come here. Slant magazine wrote about American Life upon its release. Here's the quote: "It's frequently self-indulgent, misguided, unpleasant, difficult to listen to, silly and humorless, but it's also consistent, uncompromising and unapologetic." I'm curious though, because you said it, Damien, that sometimes her work is appreciated a long time after the fact. I don't know, are people giving it unjust credit now? Are they overrating it now for the sake of it? Maybe because in light of Madame X, and maybe some people were a bit disappointed by that, so all of a sudden American Life goes up in favour? I'm confused. Where does it sit amongst the fan community?
I guess I still think it's like a divisive album between fans. Like we agree that Madam X did bring it back because there's this thing where it's like sort of political, but in the sense it's not really political. It's more about the illusions of life. But I guess because the first track, American Life, she does perform American Life on the Madam X tour, so I think that brings it back to the forefront.
To me, this is a bit like if it was to be linked to any album, and I could be completely wrong here, but from my point of view, this is most linked to Rebel Heart for me. I feel like they're the two that go together.
Well, it's funny because
That's
one
so
of the songs
interesting.
from Rebel Heart that didn't
Yeah.
make the cut was Revolution. Did people remember that song from Rebel Heart? It didn't make it onto the
Yes.
album. Revolution.
Yeah, that was one of the
I thought it
unreleased,
should have
right?
been on the American Life album. It sounded like an American Life outtake.
Because she's talking in both, to me. Her call to her army of fans and to the wider public is you can be a rebel, you can be a revolutionary in your own way, and you can make your own mark. And I feel like that's what American Life was probably one of the messages in it was trying to say, and certainly Rebel Heart was trying to say that as well. Be a rebel, be an individual, buck the system where possible. That's why I get the link.
That actually blew my mind that you just said that, because it's that album. I always think of it as like that was an album that had components of her linked throughout it, and I think that's what this American Life is all about. So I see that connection as well, where there's those little stories about who Madonna is and who she is in the industry and stuff, like with songs like Benevidi, I don't even know how to pronounce that.
I know the one you mean.
Yeah, that's so hard that's a tongue twister.
It is.
Yeah, with songs like that.
Now, commercial performance, this album didn't by any means flop. I don't think that would be fair to say. It moved, I mean, in comparison to Ray of Light and Music,
it
didn't
was the
move.
32nd best selling album of the 2003
in
so
United
didn't do too bad.
States. Exactly.
Number one in the US, so
Yeah, but you can never judge by that peak positions. You got to judge by the end of year positions. So Madonna will always go to number one based on how many versions of albums she puts out. The other thing, when they say it didn't sell as much as Music and Ray of Light, we also have to recognise that we were starting the decline of the physical unit sales at this point for all artists, not just Madonna. Like the internet and downloads and different ways of getting music. I don't think streaming was certainly there yet, but all sales were on the decline. So I always think it's really unfair to say this didn't sell as many as Music, and so therefore, it wasn't as successful. I think the landscape had well and truly changed.
I agree.
Definitely, and as well,
it was such a mainstream, much more of a mainstream record, I think, than American Life.
One of those incredible contradictions to me is the fact that this album, it did hold its own, but it didn't blow up the charts like some of her other work. Yet the Reinvention Tour comes along. It heavily focuses on the content of this album, and it's the biggest grossing concert of her career at that stage.
Well, she was supposed to call it the Whore of Babylon Tour.
The Whore of Babylon Tour? Really?
Yes. It was supposed to be called that then. It was supposed to be called Ground Zero, but that was in, like, people said, that's in bad taste because of September 11th.
Ground Zero was considered? Oh, Madonna. Oh, no. Stop it.
I heard about the Whore of Babylon. I didn't hear about Ground Zero, but...
Yeah, that was one of the names that she was supposed to have.
Oh, my goodness. Thank God even Madonna made the wise choice to stay away from that. That's when you talk about what's too far, the sex book, the American Life video clip, Ground Zero tour? No.
I don't think the sex book was too far. I think that needed to be
No, not at all. But what I'm saying is she rode those waves, but I really don't. I think Ground Zero tour would have been her Ground Zero, put it that way.
Oh my God. That was like the most, like, can you imagine saying that now? Like that she had a tour called that? Like,
Can you imagine the opening too, like parachuting out of the Twin Tower or something onto the stage? Oh, Jesus. Terrible.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Thanks, Madonna, for not choosing that pathway.
I prefer the Whore of Babylon tour. I would have wanted that. I mean, that would have been a cool T-shirt tour.
I actually think that was a cool name, but I understood why she backed off from that.
Where does that come from? Why Whore of Babylon? What's the reference there?
I think it's the biblical. It was like a biblical thing.
biblical
Where I think it was like the queen of Rachel or something like that. So a biblical character was called the Whore of Babylon. So,
okay, let's sum this up. What are our final thoughts on American Life, and what would you say to the people listening about if they're thinking about finishing this and putting it into the? I was going to say put it into the CD player. They don't exist anymore. But if they were thinking of listening to this album, should they? Shouldn't they? Let's start with you, Mr. Madonna. Final thoughts on American Life.
I think they should, because it's experimental Madonna. I mean, it sounds way ahead of the times, like music, like American Life. It's very self-referential and talking about illusions in the life. And, listen to something with electronic, listen to something with trip hop. If you like that, listen to it. Start with, I would say for the light listener, listen to Hollywood. And for someone who's more daring, why don't you listen to American Life and watch the video too?
And before we go to you, Damien, my final thoughts on American Life are you have to listen to it purely because there are some exceptional highs on this album. And what I find when I listen to American Life is it's like, oh, that's right, this track, I love this song. But because of the whole album didn't grab me, and it's not one of those that you rush to, I suppose the side effect and the positive side effect of that is that there are some tracks that I don't listen to too much. So when I get them on this track, I was only listening to it this morning. There were so many songs, so many that I went, I love this. I love this. I forgot about this actually. So that's what I say. Put it in case you're missing some treats. Damien, your final thoughts.
I just think it's a misunderstood piece of work from her catalogue, and I just think if you like folk, electronic music, acoustic and less overproduced tracks, then you'll probably like it. So I'd say give it a go.
And Sarah?
Like most people are saying here, it's a very misunderstood album. I say if you're willing to have an open mind, and with this piece of work, you just remember that it is like a wild card in a way, in some ways, sonically and sound wise, but there's a lot of more softer type of songs on here. And I recommend it to anyone who has like very sophisticated music taste, who's willing to listen to like experimental electronic and just folk music in general. And it's a very beautiful album overall. And even if you don't like some songs the first time, just give it a try a few times. Come back to it
Force
later.
yourself to like it. Force yourself.
Exactly. You can really, really love it. 'Cause, like,
you want to rub my nose in ecstatic process, don't you? Eat it. Well, it took me like 15, 16 years to like, I'm so stupid. I didn't like it until this year. Heard it in 2003, but love it in 2019. So, wow. Oh, there you go. So there you go, listeners. Go and put it on, put a record on and make it American Life. Sarah, Damien and Albie, we have reached ground zero. Thank you so much for your help. And you all have a great night.
You too.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm thinking it's a lucky. I get a double shot it goes into my pocket, and you know I'm satisfied. I got my Mini Cooper, and I'm feeling super duper good. They tell me I'm a trooper, and you know I'm satisfied. I do yoga and Pilates, and the room is full of high.